I don't blame you, Adrian said, but I'm not here to make promises, just to offer shelter. She looked at him again, his soaked hair, his honest eyes, and made the hardest decision she'd made in months. She reached out and took his hand. Back at the Bentley, the driver blinked as Adrian opened the door and gently helped Maya in. She clutched Lily protectively as the door closed. The driver looked at him through the mirror but said nothing. Adrian simply said, "Take us home." As the car pulled away, thunder rolled in the distance, but inside the car, something had shifted. Two strangers. One moment, a storm neither of them saw coming, and the first spark of a love story born not in comfort, but in the rain. Hello, bestie. Please stay with me as I unfold this interesting romantic story. If you enjoy the story, please support us by subscribing to this channel and hit the notification button for more. Thank you. Grab your popcorn, sit back, relax, and enjoy this story. The sky over Manhattan was a heavy sheet of gray, threatening rain all day until it finally gave way to a slow, relentless downpour. The city, usually alive with noise and color, seemed dulled by the storm. Cars honked less frequently. People moved faster. Umbrellas sprouted like mushrooms across the sidewalks. Inside a black Bentley parked on the edge of Central Park, Adrian Voss sat in the back seat, gazing blankly at the streaming water on his window. Raindrops raced each other down the glass like tears from the heavens. The CEO of Voss Dynamics, a tech conglomerate valued in the billions, was supposed to be heading to a business dinner uptown. A dinner filled with executives, media cameras, and fake laughter. But for once, Adrian didn't feel like pretending. He had the world at his feet. Wealth, power, the ability to move markets with a single call. But lately, none of it felt like enough. He couldn't remember the last time he smiled and meant it. Every conversation was a transaction. Every relationship came with expectations. And then, he saw her, a figure sitting alone on a bench just beyond the iron gates of the park. Slouched forward, soaked to the skin. A woman, arms tightly wrapped around a bundled-up baby. Her head was bowed, hair plastered to her forehead. No umbrella, no jacket, no attempt to shield herself from the rain. Adrian's eyebrows drew together. Something about the sight stirred a part of him he didn't even know still existed. "Stop the car," he said. The driver looked up in the rearview mirror, surprised. "Sir? Stop. Now." The Bentley slowed and pulled to the curb. Adrian opened the door before the driver could offer him an umbrella. The moment he stepped out, rain drenched his suit and flattened his jet-black hair. He walked quickly toward the woman, ignoring the chill that instantly seeped into his clothes. As he approached, she looked up. Her eyes were wide and defensive, scanning his face with caution. Her lips were slightly cracked, and dark circles rimmed her eyes. The baby in her arms squirmed and let out a soft, high-pitched cry. "Are you all right?" Adrian asked, lowering his voice to soften the intrusion. "We're fine," she said quickly, pulling her coat tighter over the baby, even though it was clearly too thin to protect against the cold. He crouched slightly to meet her eye level. "You don't look fine." She stiffened. "We're waiting for the rain to stop." Adrian gently removed his coat and extended it to her. "Here, this should help." She stared at the expensive fabric, hesitant. "I don't want charity." "It's not charity. It's basic human decency," he replied firmly. "Please." The baby let out another cry, and her resolve cracked. She took the coat and wrapped it around both herself and her child, exhaling shakily. "I'm Adrian Voss," he said, watching her carefully. "You don't have to tell me anything, but if you'll let me help, I can at least give you a warm place to stay, just for tonight." She narrowed her eyes. "Adrian Voss? As in the Adrian Voss?" He gave a small, tired smile. "Unfortunately." A pause. "My name is Maya," she said finally. "This is Lily. She's 7 months old." "Hi, Lily," Adrian said gently, glancing at the baby. "You two shouldn't be out here in this weather." Maya's eyes began to shine. Not with joy, but from holding back tears too long. She nodded stiffly. "I don't trust easily." "I don't blame you," Adrian said, "but I'm not here to make promises, just to offer shelter." She looked at him again. His soaked hair, his honest eyes, and made the hardest decision she'd made in months. She reached out and took his hand. Back at the Bentley, the driver blinked as Adrian opened the door and gently helped Maya in. She clutched Lily protectively as the door closed. The driver looked at him through the mirror but said nothing. Adrian simply said, "Take us home." As the car pulled away, thunder rolled in the distance, but inside the car, something had shifted. Two strangers. One moment, a storm neither of them saw coming, and the first spark of a love story born not in comfort, but in the rain. The elevator rose silently, its mirrored walls reflecting the image of a tired young woman holding her child and a billionaire standing quietly beside her, both dripping from the rain. Maya kept her eyes down, rocking Lily gently, while Adrian stared straight ahead, his mind turning over questions he dared not ask yet. When the elevator opened, the penthouse greeted them like a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering Manhattan skyline. The walls were ivory and gold, decorated with abstract paintings and carefully arranged sculptures. Every corner spoke of elegance and wealth. But what struck Maya the most was how quiet it all was. Not lifeless, but still, like a space untouched by real life. "Wow," she whispered without meaning to. Adrian caught the awe in her voice and felt a strange tug in his chest. He'd seen this place for years. It had never made him feel anything. Now it felt full. "You'll stay in the guest suite," Adrian said, leading her down a wide hallway. "There's a crib in the storage room. They'll have it brought up." She followed hesitantly, still unsure if she should be afraid. But her arms ached from holding Lily for hours, and her feet were sore and blistered. She hadn't eaten a full meal in days. Her stomach growled in embarrassment. When they reached the guest room, Maya gasped softly. It was larger than any apartment she'd ever lived in. A soft king-sized bed, pristine white bedding, warm lighting, and a couch by the window. A large bathroom adjoined the room, already stocked with fresh towels and toiletries. I don't know what to say," she murmured. "You don't have to say anything," Adrian replied. "Take a shower. Rest. They'll bring something for you to eat." "Thank you," she said, her voice almost a whisper. He gave a brief nod and left the room, closing the door behind him. Maya stood there for a long moment, unsure if it was a dream. Then Lily fussed softly, pulling her back to reality. She laid the baby on the bed, removing the soaked blanket and changing her into something from the diaper bag. A thin onesie, barely enough for this weather. Minutes later, she stepped into the shower. Hot water poured over her like a blessing. She leaned against the tile, tears finally falling, mixing with the water. She had been strong for so long. Homeless shelters, sleeping in subway stations, facing strangers' judgment. She had made it this far for Lily, and now, for the first time in months, she felt safe. Meanwhile, Adrian stood in the kitchen with his housekeeper, Mrs. Delgado, who had worked for him for years. "She's a stranger, Mr. Voss," the older woman said carefully, though her tone held more concern than judgment. "Are you sure about this?" "She's just a woman with a baby," he said softly, pouring soup into a bowl. "She didn't ask for anything." Mrs. Delgado nodded slowly. "Sometimes the ones who don't ask are the ones who need the most." He carried the tray himself, warm chicken soup, fresh bread and water, and knocked gently on the guest room door. Maya answered in a clean robe, her wet hair tied in a towel. Lily was bundled in fresh linens from the closet and was finally asleep. "I brought food," he said. She stared at the tray with wide, grateful eyes. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he replied, setting it on the bedside table. Maya sat on the bed, taking the first spoonful of soup. Her eyes closed, savoring the warmth. For a few seconds, she looked like a woman not beaten down by the world. "I used to work at a diner," she said softly, breaking the silence. "Before I got pregnant. Before everything went upside down." "You don't have to tell me anything," Adrian said gently. "I want to. You helped me. You should know what kind of mess you brought into your house." He sat on the couch across the room. "Go on." Maya exhaled. "The baby's father, His name was Darren. When I told him I was pregnant, he vanished. I stayed with a friend for a while, but she had her own problems. I lost my job. I tried to make it work, but I failed. You didn't fail, Adrian said without hesitation. She looked up, surprised. You kept your daughter alive. You fought for her. That's not failure, Maya. That's survival. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone saw her. Not as a burden, not as a mistake, not as a charity case. Just as a mother trying her best. Her throat tightened. Why are you really doing this, Adrian? She asked, her voice trembling. You're rich, important. You could have walked right past me. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, looking at her with sincerity. Because I've had money thrown at me all my life, but I've never known what it means to matter to someone. Not really. Today I saw someone who mattered, even if the world ignored her. A tear slipped down Maya's cheek. Thank you, she whispered. As Adrian left her to rest, he paused just before closing the door and looked back at the woman cradling her baby, quietly sipping soup under a warm light. For the first time in years, Adrian Voss didn't feel like a man chasing numbers. He felt like a man becoming human again. And somewhere deep inside, he knew his life had just changed forever. Maya woke up the next morning to soft sunlight peeking through the sheer curtains and the distant hum of the city far below. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The bed was soft, warm, too warm. Her back didn't ache, and there were no sounds of crying children from thin-walled shelters. No musty smells or cold, drafty air. Then she saw Lily sleeping peacefully beside her in a makeshift nest of fresh white pillows. And she remembered the rain, the man, Adrian Voss, the billionaire who could have driven off and never looked back, but instead opened his world to a stranger and her baby. She sat up slowly, brushing her fingers through her hair, still trying to convince herself it was real. Out in the kitchen, Adrian stood barefoot, coffee in hand, staring out the window with a distracted expression. He hadn't slept much, not because of discomfort, but because his mind wouldn't stop circling back to the woman down the hall. There had been hundreds of women in his life, socialites, models, influencers, beautiful, polished, practiced. But Maya, there was something real about her, something raw. Her strength didn't come from presentation, it came from pain, from surviving, and it humbled him. He was still lost in thought when he heard footsteps. Maya appeared at the hallway entrance. Dressed in clean clothes Mrs. Delgado must have set out. A simple blouse and sweatpants, both slightly loose but dry and warm. Good morning, she said quietly, cradling Lily on her hip. Morning, he replied, giving her a soft smile. Coffee? I'd love some, if you're offering. He gestured to the bar stool at the island. Take a seat. She sat down, still cautious, but noticeably more rested than the night before. Lily yawned and snuggled closer to her chest, her tiny hand gripping Maya's shirt. Adrian placed a warm mug in front of her. This might be the first coffee I've had that didn't come from a gas station vending machine in 6 months, she said with a small laugh. He raised a brow. That bad? Worse, she said, taking a careful sip. But you'd be surprised what you can get used to when you don't have a choice. He didn't respond immediately. Then he said, You shouldn't have to live like that. No one should, but people do. She looked at him thoughtfully. You really don't know what that's like, do you? Adrian shook his head. Not firsthand, no. My family built wealth over generations. My father handed me the company before he died. I've never had to choose between food and rent. She nodded slowly. Then why did you stop that night? You could have ignored me. Most people did. He looked her in the eye. Because you weren't invisible to me. Those 5 words silenced her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a burden or a shadow in the background. She felt seen. Later that day, Mrs. Delgado brought Lily a small plush bunny and arranged some toys in the corner of the guest room. Adrian, meanwhile, made a quiet phone call to his company's human resources director. I need a basic entry-level position opened up, he said. Clerical work, admin support. And I want her trained gently, no pressure. Just a fair start. For someone specific, sir? She asked. Yes. A guest. Her name's Maya. That afternoon, Maya found herself wandering the apartment while Lily napped peacefully in the guest room. She stopped by Adrian's study, the door half open. He was seated at his massive desk, reading something on his laptop, glasses perched on his nose. She knocked softly. He looked up. "Hey, everything okay? I just wanted to say, thank you." Again, she said, stepping in. "Not just for the bed, or the food, or even for Lily, but for not looking at me like I'm broken." He closed the laptop and gave her his full attention. "You're not broken, Maya. You're surviving. That's not weakness, it's strength most people don't understand." She leaned against the doorframe. "I'm not good at depending on people. I've had to do everything on my own for so long." Adrian's voice was gentle. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore. I'm not asking you to depend on me. I just want to help if you'll let me." She hesitated. "I want to earn my way. I don't want to feel like I owe you anything." "You don't. But if you're serious, I've arranged a job for you. Entry-level admin work at my company. HR will guide you through everything. Training, dress code, the rest." Her eyes widened. "A real job?" "A real job. Salary, benefits, childcare support if you need it." For a moment, she was speechless. Then she nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you. I'll work hard. Promise." "I know you will." That evening, after dinner, they found themselves in the living room. Adrian was reading a business report, and Maya was folding clothes in silence while Lily lay on a blanket kicking her feet and babbling. Adrian glanced up from his papers and watched her for a moment. She was humming to Lily, folding tiny socks with care, her long hair tucked behind one ear. She didn't belong to his world of numbers and boardrooms, and yet, somehow, she made the cold penthouse feel like a home. He spoke without thinking. "You've changed this place, you know?" Maya looked up, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "This apartment. My life. Everything. You've only been here 2 days, but it feels different. Better." Maya gave a small smile. "Maybe what you needed wasn't more space. Just someone to fill the silence." Adrian stared at her, heart tightening unexpectedly. And in that quiet moment, as the city lights blinked outside and the sound of Lily's coos filled the air, both of them began to realize that something fragile but powerful was blooming between them. It was more than shelter. It was the beginning of something they both thought they'd never find again. Hope. The soft click of Maya's heels echoed through the marble lobby of Voss Dynamics. Towering glass walls and chrome finishes reflected the fast-paced heartbeat of corporate New York. Everything about the building screamed power, precision, and purpose. Maya felt like a mismatched piece of a puzzle as she stood at the reception desk, holding Lily's diaper bag in one hand and a neatly folded copy of her HR documents in the other. But she reminded herself, "You're not here by accident. You earned this chance. Don't run." "Name?" the receptionist asked without looking up from her screen. "Maya Benson. I'm starting in the administrative support department today." The receptionist typed briefly, then looked up. "Ah, you're the one Mr. Voss referred. Right this way. Ms. Clara from HR will meet you in the orientation lounge." Maya blinked. She hadn't realized Adrian had used his name to clear her path so visibly. Somehow, it made her both grateful and a little nervous. As she followed the receptionist down a hallway, she caught a glimpse of herself in a glass panel. Blouse tucked in, hair neatly tied, minimal makeup. She didn't look like the same woman who sat in the rain just days ago. But beneath her new appearance, a familiar voice whispered, "You don't belong here." She pushed it away. Back at the penthouse, Adrian sat in his office in a white button-down shirt, reading through investor emails while his assistant briefed him on the day's schedule. But his mind drifted constantly to Maya. He had seen the nerves in her eyes that morning as she left. He knew how hard she was trying, not just for Lily, but for herself, for her dignity, for her pride. He respected that more than any resume. Still, part of him feared how others in his company might treat her if they learned she wasn't just another employee, if they discovered she had spent the night in the CEO's home. He picked up the phone. "Clara," he said to the HR director, "I want Maya to be supported. Don't let anyone make her feel like she's here as a favor." She has potential. I want her to feel that. Understood, sir, Clara replied. She's already in orientation. She's sharp. I think you made a good call. Meanwhile, Maya sat at a round table with two other new hires in a sleek, glass-walled room overlooking the city. Clara, a kind-looking woman in her 50s with salt and pepper hair, stood at the front, walking them through the company culture. Maya took notes diligently, her nerves gradually settling. Clara explained everything from how internal messaging worked to how performance reviews were structured. But what caught Maya's attention most was a slide titled, "What We Value: Dignity, Drive, and Decency." She stared at those three words longer than the others. It didn't sound like the usual corporate slogan. It sounded human. As Clara dismissed them for a short break, a woman named Sasha, seated beside her, leaned over. "You're the one Mr. Voss recommended, right?" Maya hesitated. Yes, I met him recently." "Wow," Sasha said, raising a brow. "You must be important." Maya forced a polite smile. "Not really, just lucky." But as Sasha walked off to get coffee, Maya's stomach tightened. People are already talking, she thought. Still, she shook it off. She couldn't control whispers. What she could control was how hard she worked. By lunchtime, Maya was assigned to a desk on the 12th floor. It wasn't a glamorous position, data entry, appointment scheduling, filing logistics. But it was a start. She settled into the quiet rhythm of the work, and with every click of the keyboard, she felt a little more in control of her life. Later in the day, as she rode the elevator down to the lobby to meet the nanny Adrian had arranged for Lily's daycare pickup, she found herself smiling softly. "This is real," she thought. "You're doing it." That evening, back at the penthouse, Adrian heard the door open just after 6 p.m. He stood from the kitchen island, watching as Maya stepped in, heels in one hand, Lily in the other, smiling. "You survived your first day," he said with a teasing smile. "Barely," she replied, dropping her shoes at the door. "I think my feet are filing a lawsuit." He chuckled. "And how was it?" She set Lily down on the floor with her plush bunny, then walked over to him. "It was empowering," she said honestly. "I was terrified at first, but once I started doing the work, I remembered who I was before things fell apart. I felt competent, useful, seen." Adrian studied her for a moment. "You are all those things, Maya. I just helped clear the fog so you could see it too." She met his eyes, and for a second the world quieted. Not as boss and employee, not as billionaire and stray, just man and woman, standing in the glow of something neither of them could name yet. "You've given me more than shelter," she said softly. "You've given me space to stand again. And you've brought life back into this empty place," he said. Maya turned, scooping Lily into her arms as she yawned. "Come on, little one, let's call it a night." As she walked down the hallway, Adrian leaned against the counter, watching her disappear into the guest room. The silence in the apartment no longer felt hollow, felt full. And though he didn't realize it yet, Adrian Voss was falling. Not with speed, but with certainty, into something he never expected. Love. The buzz of the Voss Dynamics 12th floor was a steady hum of phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and low conversations about numbers, pitches, and pending meetings. But amidst the fast pace, Maya had found her rhythm. 2 weeks into her new job, she had mastered her tasks. Logging internal schedules, organizing transport documents, filing correspondence, and even earned polite nods from senior admins. Her desk wasn't near any windows, nor did she have a private office, but it felt more valuable than any penthouse view. It was hers. She belonged. Still, whispers trailed her in the halls. "That's the woman Mr. Voss brought in. I heard she's staying at his place. She's pretty, but what's the story there?" Maya ignored them. She had learned long ago that people will always talk. But their words couldn't define her. Only her choices could. And every day, she chose to prove herself through quiet diligence and unwavering professionalism. But the one thing she couldn't ignore was Adrian. Adrian, meanwhile, had begun to notice things he hadn't paid attention to before, like how he always knew what time Maya's lunch break started, or how his eyes instinctively found her face during staff briefings, no matter how many people were in the room. He tried to remain distant, professional. He was her employer, after all. But something about her presence felt anchoring, grounding, and that was rare in his world of meetings and mergers. One afternoon, he saw her in the break room, alone, pouring coffee into a paper cup. Her hair was tied up, a pen tucked behind her ear, and she looked utterly focused as she reviewed a small notepad. He stepped in casually. "Taking a break?" he asked. She looked up, startled, then smiled. "Trying to. I've earned exactly 10 minutes. He glanced at the pen in her hair. "You always work during your breaks?" "Old habit," she said, offering a shrug. "When you've had nothing for a while, you feel like you have to earn everything." Adrian walked to the coffee machine beside her and poured himself a cup. Their shoulders almost touched. "You don't have to prove anything to me," he said quietly. She turned to face him, lifting her gaze. "I'm not proving it to you," she replied. "I'm proving it to myself." Their eyes locked. The hum of the refrigerator and the distant ring of phones faded away. Adrian saw it then, not just her strength, but her fire. Quiet, yes, but burning. And he was drawn to it more than he cared to admit. "I admire that," he said softly. She smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Well, don't say that too loud or I might ask for a promotion." He chuckled, sipping his coffee. Noted. That evening, back at the penthouse, Lily had fallen asleep early, and Maya was curled up on the oversized sofa with a book she'd borrowed from the study. Adrian returned late from a board meeting, loosened his tie, and paused when he saw her. "You always make this place feel lived in," he said as he set his briefcase down. Maya looked up from the book, cheeks slightly flushed. "Is that a good thing?" "It's the best thing," he answered without hesitation. She laughed softly. "I hope I'm not invading your space. I try to stay out of your way." "You're not in my way, Maya," Adrian said, stepping closer. "You're in my life." The words hung in the air like suspended breath. Maya looked down at her book, heart thudding. Adrian cleared his throat. "Anyway, I'm going to change out of this suit. You want some wine later? I brought back a bottle from Napa." "Sure," she said, eyes flicking up. "Red or white?" "Red. Strong, quiet, and intense." She raised an eyebrow. "Like someone I know?" He smirked. "Maybe." He disappeared down the hall, and Maya let out a slow breath, staring at the door he walked through. Something had shifted. Not dramatically, not explosively, but undeniably. And it scared her, just a little, because she had promised herself not to feel anything again. Not like this. But here she was, sipping coffee beside a billionaire and feeling butterflies in her stomach because of a look, a smile, a few lingering words. And somehow Adrian Voss, the man who had everything, was beginning to make her believe she was worth being loved again. The evening air in Manhattan was crisp, brushing against the tall buildings with a gentle hum as the city's lights flickered like distant stars. In the Voss penthouse, the atmosphere was warm, glowing softly from the dim chandelier above the living room. The faint aroma of aged red wine and lavender lingered in the space where Maya and Adrian now sat. Their glasses barely touched, the silence between them comfortable yet charged. Maya leaned back into the plush couch, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. She wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, her feet tucked beneath her, barefoot and relaxed. But her heart wasn't. It beat in an uneven rhythm. Adrian sat opposite her, now in a black t-shirt and casual pants. A far cry from the sharp suits he wore in the office. He looked younger this way, softer, more human, and far more dangerous to her fragile sense of control. "So," he said, studying her carefully, "you like books about second chances." Maya blinked, then laughed. "What makes you say that?" He pointed to the paperback lying beside her on the couch. "A Million Tomorrows. That's not exactly light reading." She smiled faintly. "It's one of my favorites. It's about a woman who loses everything and finds herself by starting over." Adrian nodded. "Sounds familiar." Her smile faltered, but she didn't look away. "It is." He watched her closely. "You don't talk much about your past." or Lily's father? Maya stiffened. It wasn't a judgmental question, and his tone was gentle. But still, it struck something deep. He left when I was 4 months pregnant, she said after a pause. Said he wasn't ready for that kind of life. I begged him to stay. He said I was suffocating him. Adrian's jaw tightened. Coward. I thought it was my fault, she continued, voice low. For a long time, I thought maybe if I were smarter, prettier, quieter, louder, different, he would have stayed. I thought I broke him. You didn't, Adrian said firmly. He was already broken. She looked up at him, surprised by the conviction in his voice. I've seen men like that, he added. They don't know what to do with a real woman, so they run. Maya smiled sadly. I didn't run, though. Even when I had nothing, I held on. And that's why you're stronger than hell ever be, Adrian said. His voice quieter now, more personal. Their eyes met, and for a long moment nothing was said. But everything was understood. Maya reached for her glass, her hand trembling just slightly. Why are you being so kind to me, Adrian? I mean, you didn't have to stop that night in the rain. You didn't have to let me stay. Or hire me. Adrian hesitated. I didn't do it out of pity, if that's what you're thinking. Then why? He looked down at his wine, swirling it once. Because when I saw you, sitting there, holding your daughter like your life depended on it, something in me woke up. Her breath caught. He looked at her then, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly undid her. I've built empires, crushed competitors, lived in penthouses and vacationed in countries I can't even pronounce. But none of that ever made me feel like I belonged anywhere. Until you and Lily walked into my world. Tears stung the corners of her eyes, and she quickly blinked them away. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough, he replied. And I want to know more. If you'll let me. Maya looked down at her lap, fingers clutching her sweater. I'm scared, Adrian. Of falling. Of hoping. So am I, he said almost to himself. But maybe we can be scared together. A silence fell again, heavy but sweet, before Lily's soft cry rang from the baby monitor on the coffee table. Maya stood immediately. She must be hungry, she said, grateful for the interruption as she hurried to the guest room. Adrian watched her go, a strange ache swelling in his chest. He had opened a door tonight, one that couldn't be closed, and for the first time in years he didn't mind. The next morning, Maya entered the glass towers of vast dynamics with a flutter in her chest. Something had changed between her and Adrian, not in any dramatic public way but in a quiet, irreversible shift. Their conversation the night before lingered in her mind like the scent of jasmine after rain. Soft, unforgettable, and dangerous. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and pushed those thoughts aside. Focus, Maya. Focus on the job. But it wasn't just her who sensed the change. By mid-morning, whispers crept through the office corridors like smoke. They always did, especially when the elevator paused too long on the penthouse level, or when Adrian lingered near Maya's desk just a moment too long under the guise of reviewing schedules. Did you see the way he looked at her? He's never smiled like that before. Ever. She has to be special. He's practically allergic to feelings. Maya pretended not to hear. She kept her eyes on her screen, tapping in meeting updates with quiet efficiency, but her stomach tightened with each passing whisper. And then there was Vanessa Blake, Adrian's longtime executive assistant, and the gatekeeper to his world. Elegant, strategic, sharp-eyed. Vanessa had served under Adrian for nearly a decade and had long been rumored to have a soft spot for him. She never acted on it, at least not openly, but Maya could feel the heat of her gaze each time they crossed paths. Just before lunch, Vanessa approached Maya's desk with a stack of folders and a cool smile. You'll need to file these by department priority, she said crisply. Mr. Voss prefers everything color-coded, though I'm sure you already know that. Maya nodded politely. Of course, they'll get on it. Vanessa tilted her head, her eyes narrowing slightly. You've add just rather quickly for someone with no corporate background. Impressive. Thank you, Maya said, not missing the edge in her tone. Vanessa hesitated, then added, You seem close to Mr. Voss. I assume he's explained how important discretion is at this level. Maya met her gaze calmly. I'm here to work, Ms. Blake. That's all. Vanessa smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Good, she said. Let's keep it that way. Later that afternoon, Maya found herself in the executive conference room with Adrian and 3 department heads, reviewing a presentation on the company's upcoming clean energy initiative. She had taken notes quietly, interjecting only when necessary, her professionalism flawless. But when the meeting ended and the others had filed out, Adrian lingered behind. He closed the door gently and turned to her. You okay? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Just some office politics. Adrian's eyes darkened. Vanessa? Maya didn't answer directly. People are starting to notice, Adrian. The way you look at me, the fact that I live in your home. He stepped closer. Let them notice. I'm trying to build a life, she said, voice low. One that's mine, not something borrowed, not something people pity or resent. I can't afford another scandal. Adrian paused. Then he reached out and gently touched her hand. Maya, I don't want to be a scandal in your life. I want to be your choice. The vulnerability in his eyes made her heart ache. She gently pulled her hand away, not out of rejection, but out of protection. Of him, of herself. Then let's make sure it's a real one, she said. And that when I choose you, it's not because you saved me, but because I see you. He nodded slowly, understanding. That night, Maya sat beside Lily's crib, watching her sleep. The little girl's chest rose and fell with peaceful rhythm. Her tiny hand curled beside her cheek. Maya brushed a kiss over her forehead. I'm trying, baby, she whispered. Trying to do this right. For you, for me, for us. From the hallway, Adrian watched through the partially open door, a soft expression on his face. He didn't interrupt. He simply stood there, watching the woman who had somehow filled the emptiest corners of his world without asking for anything but a chance. And in that quiet moment, he knew he was already hers. Rain pounded against the tall windows of the penthouse, a relentless rhythm echoing through the quiet evening. Maya sat curled on the couch, Lily asleep in her arms, her mind restless. Adrian was late, unusually late. She had checked her phone twice, no messages, no updates. She reminded herself that he was a CEO. Busy. Meetings could stretch. Delays were normal. Still, something gnawed at her. Just as she rose to lay Lily in her crib, the door opened. Adrian stepped in, soaked from head to toe. His coat clung to his broad shoulders, his hair matted with rain. He looked like a man who had just walked through a storm, inside and out. Maya's eyes widened. Adrian? What happened? He dropped his coat at the door and walked in, dripping onto the hardwood floor. I needed air, he said softly. And I didn't take the car. She placed Lily down carefully and walked toward him. You walked? In this rain? I needed to think. He met her eyes, and she saw it then. The storm wasn't outside. It was behind his eyes. She guided him to the couch, pulled a towel from the side closet, and began drying his hair like a mother might with a lost child. You want to tell me what's going on? She asked gently. He didn't answer immediately. Then, with a long sigh, he spoke. My father called today, after 10 years. Maya froze. Your father? He left when I was 16. Walked out on my mother and me like we were nothing. She died 2 years later, still waiting for him to come back. I buried her with unanswered letters in her drawer. Her heart clenched. I never told anyone that, he added. Not even Vanessa. Not the board. No one. Maya sat beside him, the towel forgotten on her lap. What did he say? She asked softly. Adrian looked away, jaw tight. That he wants to meet. That he's proud of me. That he thinks we can reconnect now that I've made something of myself. He laughed bitterly. Where was he when I cried myself to sleep? When I worked through college on 2 hours of sleep just to pay rent? Where was his pride then? Maya reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. Sometimes people don't come back for the right reasons, she said. But you did something he never could. You stayed. You fought. You built. He looked at her, pain and anger warring in his eyes. I'm scared, Maya. Not of him, but of what it'll become if I forgive him. She nodded slowly. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean trusting again. It just means freeing yourself. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he leaned in, resting his forehead against hers. You make me want to be better, he whispered. And you make me believe in better, she replied, closing her eyes. The moment held, stretching like a promise between them. The next morning, Adrian stood by the window with a mug of coffee in hand. Maya walked into the room in her robe, still sleepy-eyed, and paused. He turned to her. I have something to ask you. She blinked. Okay. He hesitated. There's a charity gala in 2 weeks. I want you to come. With me. Not as my assistant. Not as a guest. But as my partner. Maya stared at him, heart thudding. You're ready for that? She asked. He smiled. I think I've been ready since the rain brought you into my life. The night of the gala arrived faster than Maya expected. She stood in the walk-in closet, staring at the shimmering gown Adrian had picked for her. It was soft gold, elegant, understated, and yet dazzling under the light. Her heart raced as she reached for it. Never in her life had she worn something so luxurious, let alone imagined walking into a room full of billionaires and CEOs on the arm of one. As she slipped into the dress, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Not the girl from the park. Not the exhausted mother hiding beneath layers of fear and shame, but a woman standing on new ground. There was a soft knock at the door. Adrian entered, dressed in a classic black tuxedo, bow tie perfectly aligned. For a moment he didn't speak. He simply stared. Wow, he said quietly. You look different? She teased nervously. No, he replied, stepping closer. You look like every reason I stopped running. Maya's eyes shimmered with emotion, but she managed to smile. You don't look so bad yourself, Mr. Voss. The ballroom of the Conrad Plaza Hotel was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, golden candelabras. Media cameras flashed near the entrance as the city's elite arrived. When Adrian stepped onto the red carpet, Maya by his side, the crowd stilled. All eyes turned. Maya held her head high, hand nestled in Adrian's. She could feel the whispers behind them, the calculating glances. But none of it mattered. He had introduced her not as his assistant, but as Maya Salas. No titles, no explanations, just her. Inside, the evening swirled with champagne, polite laughter, and corporate alliances. Maya found herself engaged in conversations with people she'd only ever seen in news articles. She held her own, gracefully, thoughtfully. Adrian never strayed far from her side. Midway through the night, Vanessa Blake approached their table. She wore a steel-gray dress that clung like armor and held a flute of champagne as if it were a sword. Lovely evening, she said smoothly. Adrian nodded. Vanessa. Vanessa turned her gaze on Maya. You've certainly captured the room. Not everyone manages that their first time. Just taking notes from those who've done it longer, Maya said, a quiet challenge in her voice. Vanessa raised her brows slightly. Clever. As she walked away, Adrian leaned toward Maya. She's testing you. Maya sipped her drink. I know. And am done being underestimated. Later, Adrian took the stage to make a short speech for the company's latest education initiative. Maya watched him, her heart swelling. He spoke of second chances, of investing in futures, not just profits, of believing in people even when the world saw them as broken. Maya realized then, his success wasn't just in numbers. It was in his heart. And somehow that heart was starting to include her. As they left the gala, hand in hand, rain began to fall lightly over the city again. Adrian stopped on the sidewalk, looked up at the sky, then at her. Still the most beautiful sight I've seen in the rain, he said. Maya laughed softly. You're lucky my hair is pinned. He reached for her hand and spun her gently under the streetlight, the city glistening around them. No, I'm lucky you stayed, he whispered. And there, beneath the rain again, but no longer strangers, he kissed her. Not because he rescued her. Not because he owed her comfort. but because they had chosen each other. The morning after the gala, sunlight streamed into the penthouse through floor-to-ceiling windows. Maya stood by the island counter in a satin robe, sipping warm tea while Lily babbled happily in her high chair, smearing applesauce across her cheeks. Adrian came in shirtless, towel wrapped around his waist, water dripping from his hair. He looked relaxed, peaceful even. It was the first time Maya had seen him so effortlessly at ease. "You should smile more often," she teased. He walked over, kissed her forehead, then pressed a kiss to Lily's cheek. "You two are my reason." Before she could reply, the doorbell rang. Adrian frowned. "That's odd. I wasn't expecting anyone." He went to open the door. Maya continued feeding Lily, unaware that everything was about to shift. Then his voice, cold, surprised. "Maya?" She froze. Her hands trembled slightly. That voice. She turned slowly, and there he was, Daniel, her ex, tall, lean, a worn-out jacket over his shoulders. His face had aged. There were lines under his eyes, the kind that came from years of regret. But his presence still sent an uneasy chill through her spine. "Maya, I didn't know where else to go," he said. Adrian's body stiffened as he looked between them. "Who is this?" he asked quietly. Maya swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's Lily's father." The room became still, like time itself held its breath. Daniel stepped inside, ignoring the discomfort in the air. "I know I left. I know I wasn't there when she was born. But I've been looking for you. For both of you. I made mistakes, but I want to fix things." Maya stood up slowly, standing between him and Lily. "You left when I needed you most. You disappeared. I was scared," he said. "Broke. Jobless. I felt like I had nothing to offer. But I never stopped thinking about you." Adrian spoke now, calm but firm. "You're not welcome to just walk in here and make declarations. Maya and Lily are not your responsibility anymore. You gave that up." Daniel glanced at him. "And you're what? Her new savior? Another man rescuing a woman in the rain?" Adrian stepped closer. "No. I'm a man who stands by her every day, who didn't disappear when things got hard." Maya placed a hand on Adrian's chest. "Let me talk to him." He stepped back. In the guest room, Maya faced Daniel. He looked at her with a strange mix of remorse and hope. "Maya, I know I hurt you, but I'm not here to fight. I just want to see Lily, maybe get a chance to know her. She doesn't know you. She only knows safety now. And love. I'm not here to take her," he said, "but I want to be part of her life. I want to at least try." Maya's heart was in a knot. The years she spent surviving alone flashed through her. Doctor appointments, cold nights, cheap food, crying herself to sleep. And now he wanted access to the life she had built without him. "I'll think about it," she said, voice cracking. "But not today." Daniel nodded slowly. "Thank you for not slamming the door." Later that evening, Adrian sat on the couch, quiet, his jaw tight. "I didn't expect that," he said finally. "Neither did I." He turned to her. "I won't stand in your way if you want Lily to know him, but I'll protect you both. Always." Maya leaned into him. "I didn't expect you to fight for me like that." "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. And just like that, the storm of the past began to lose its grip on her. The week that followed was a test of emotions Maya thought she had buried long ago. Daniel called every day, politely, never demanding, but persistent. He sent messages asking about Lily's favorite food, her bedtime routine, if she liked music. Adrian never told her what to do, but Maya could sense his discomfort, hidden behind his quiet stares and half-finished coffee. One afternoon, Maya found herself watching Adrian rock Lily to sleep in the nursery. She stood at the doorway, tears rising in her throat. Not from sadness, but from the war between what was and what now is. Daniel was Lily's biological father, but Adrian was the one who had learned how to braid her curls, who knew which lullaby made her stop crying, who whispered goodnight prayers over her tiny fingers. 2 days later, Daniel requested to see Lily, just for an hour in a public place. Maya reluctantly agreed. They met at a quiet cafe in a family-friendly garden. Daniel brought a soft bunny plush and a small storybook. Lily, now familiar with Maya's nervous energy, clung to her mother's dress at first. But eventually, she warmed to Daniel. He made silly faces, showed her how to fold napkins into birds. She giggled, and for a moment, Maya's heart softened. When the hour ended, Daniel looked at Maya with a surprising sincerity. "You've done an amazing job, Maya. She's perfect. Thank you for keeping her safe." Maya nodded stiffly. "I don't want to complicate your life," Daniel continued, "but I want to try. I want to be her father." "You are her father biologically, but that doesn't make you her dad," Maya replied, eyes firm. "You walked away."
You chose fear.
He lowered his gaze. "I know. I just hope one day she'll let me earn my way back." That night, Maya and Adrian sat on the rooftop garden of the penthouse. The skyline sparkled. Lily was asleep inside, and between them sat a silence that needed words. "He's not going away," Maya whispered. "I know. He's trying, Adrian. I know that too." She turned to him, eyes searching his face. "Does it bother you that she might grow up with two father figures?" He looked at her with something deeper than jealousy. Conviction. "No, because I know who I've been to her. And to you." He reached for her hand. "I didn't fall in love with you out of pity. I didn't take you in to prove anything. I fell in love with the strength in your silence. With the way you loved Lily, even when it hurt. That's the kind of woman I want beside me. Not just in the rain, but every day after." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You're not afraid it'll change my mind?" she asked. "I'm afraid it'll never be enough, but it'll never stop trying." And in that moment, Maya knew biology created life, but love created family. Weeks passed, and the city slowly moved into the chill of early winter. The bond between Maya and Adrian grew stronger with each quiet morning and shared glance, and Lily flourished under the love that filled their home. But peace, like all fragile things, can be easily threatened. One Thursday morning, Adrian's assistant burst into his office at Ashton Industries. "Sir, we have a problem. A big one." Adrian looked up from his laptop. "What is it?" She placed a tablet in front of him. It was a breaking news article. Billionaire CEO Adrian Ashton accused of bribery and corruption. Whistleblower reveals secret financial deals. Adrian stared at the headline. What the hell? He scanned through the details. The accusations were explosive and completely false. But the article was written with such calculated precision, laced with falsified documents and twisted narratives, that it had already begun spreading like wildfire. "Who planted this?" he demanded. His assistant shook her head. "We don't know, but it was leaked anonymously to 5 major media outlets. Your legal team is already on it." Adrian's phone buzzed nonstop. Investors, lawyers, the board, and then a name popped up on his screen. Daniel. He stared at it for a moment before answering. "What do you want?" Daniel's voice was calm, too calm. "Looks like your castle isn't as solid as you thought." "You did this?" Adrian growled. "You took my daughter, my ex, and played knight in shining armor. I told you I wanted to be in Lily's life, but you want to replace me. Fine, but you'll learn the hard way that not everyone stays quiet." "You used Lily as a threat?" Adrian's voice was icy. "I didn't say that," Daniel replied. "I just reminded you that some of us know how to fight dirty. If I go down, I'm not going alone." Back at the penthouse, Maya was pacing, holding a crying Lily in her arms. Adrian walked in, face pale, jaw clenched. "What's happening?" she asked immediately. "Why are the news vans outside? Why is your face all over the headlines?" Adrian looked at her and shook his head. "It's Daniel. He's trying to destroy everything I've built." Her heart stopped. "Because of me?" "No, because of his own failure. But you, both of you, are his weapon now." Maya felt rage rise inside her, mixing with fear. "He's threatening my daughter's peace just to spite you?" "I'll fix this," Adrian promised. "No matter what it takes." That night, while Lily slept and the city braced for scandal, Maya sat at the edge of the bed, holding her daughter's tiny hand. She had fought so hard to escape the chaos of her past. And now it had returned, dressed in shadows, holding matches near everything she had grown to love. But this time, she wouldn't run. She had a voice now, and a man beside her who wouldn't let the storm win. The following morning was chaos. Headlines screamed accusations. Stockholders panicked. Protesters and reporters crowded the entrance of Ashton Industries. Adrian's name was being dragged through mud, and the scent of scandal stuck to everything he touched. But inside the penthouse, he sat at the edge of the couch, calm, focused. Across from him sat Maya, her laptop open, eyes scanning the threads of the conspiracy unraveling online. "This was a coordinated leak," she said. "The article uses information from financial quarters that were never made public. Someone inside your company gave this to Daniel." Adrian nodded, and he knew exactly where to strike. "My late father's name appears in some of those records. That's what makes it believable. Dad wasn't as clean as people thought." Maya looked up. "But you are. You've run this company with integrity." Adrian stood. "Doesn't matter. People love a fall from grace more than they love the truth." Later that day, Adrian called a press conference. He walked up to the podium alone. No publicist, no lawyer. Just truth and a storm of flashing cameras. "I know the headlines have painted me as a criminal. I won't deny that the documents shared contain real names, mine included. But what they twist is intent. What they ignore is context." He paused, scanning the room. "I took over Ashton Industries after the death of my father, a man whose business dealings were not always transparent. Since then, I've fought to clean what he left behind. The records in question belong to that era, and my signature on those documents was part of closing illegal loopholes, not creating them." Reporters buzzed. Adrian raised a hand. "This isn't about clearing my name. It's about protecting the people I care about. There are men who don't want to see me succeed. One of them is the father of a little girl I love as my own." There were gasps in the room. "I didn't come here today to play politics. I came here to say, I will not be intimidated. Not by media storms. Not by cowards hiding behind children." The room exploded in camera clicks. Maya watched from the nursery, Lily asleep in her arms. Tears rolled down her cheeks as Adrian spoke on live television. Firm, brave, and undeniably hers. When he returned home, she ran to him and hugged him tightly. "You didn't have to mention Lily." "I did," he whispered, "because she's my daughter too." Maya looked up. "Even if Daniel takes me to court?" Adrian nodded. "Then we fight. Together." That evening, Maya sat with her phone in her hand. One final message to send. To Daniel. "You tried to burn everything down, but I'm not afraid anymore. Lily doesn't need a man who manipulates. She needs men who protect her peace. You can take me to court if you want, but be ready to meet the father she already knows." She hit send. No more shadows. No more fear. She looked at Adrian and smiled. Truth had walked through the fire and stood unburned. The lawsuit came faster than expected. Within days, Maya received an official court summons. Daniel had filed for joint custody of Lily. Adrian was livid. "He doesn't want to raise her," he snapped, pacing in his office, fists clenched. "He wants to win, that's all." Maya sat on the sofa, fingers trembling around the document. "He's using the courts to punish me for leaving, for surviving." Adrian knelt in front of her. "Well, fight this. I've hired the best custody lawyer in the state, and we're going to tell the truth." "But he has money now," she whispered. "Hell twist everything. What if they believe him?" Adrian took her hand. "Then we show them the scars. We show them the rain. We show them what we've built." In court, the contrast was stark. Daniel arrived in a designer suit with an expensive lawyer. He sat upright and smirked as if the trial was a formality. Maya walked in with Adrian beside her. Simple, grounded, holding the truth like armor. The judge was no nonsense. Daniel's lawyer painted a picture of a concerned father who was unjustly denied access to his child. But Maya's lawyer rose calmly. "Your Honor, This man did not attend Lily's birth. He did not support Maya during her pregnancy. In fact, we have records showing he threatened her when she refused to abort the child. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. We also have text messages, recordings, and multiple witnesses who can confirm his pattern of psychological abuse. Maya sat still, tears in her eyes. But this time, they were not tears of fear. They were tears of freedom. After court, Daniel cornered Maya outside the courtroom. "You think this is over?" he hissed. "That guy can't protect you forever." Adrian stepped between them before Maya could speak. "She doesn't need protection from you. She's already stronger than you'll ever be." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Enjoy playing daddy while you can." "I'm not playing," Adrian said. "I am." Daniel turned and walked away. For the first time, Maya didn't watch him go in fear. She looked at Adrian, her eyes searching his. "Are you sure you want this life? The noise, the fight, the past that won't stay quiet?" Adrian cupped her cheek. "I want you, Lily, rain and all." That night, Maya stood by the nursery door, watching Adrian rock Lily to sleep. She had called him Dada for the first time. Adrian looked up, surprised and speechless. Maya smiled, tears in her eyes. She knows who her father is. Weeks passed, and the storm slowly settled. Though the custody case lingered in the background, Daniel had stopped pushing. His legal team became silent. No more surprise motions, no threats. Perhaps it was the strength Maya and Adrian displayed in court. Or maybe it was the undeniable truth. Lily had already chosen her home. But even peace came with uncertainty. One Saturday morning, Maya stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over the skyline. Adrian walked in, shirtless and sleepy, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "She's still asleep?" he mumbled into her neck. Maya nodded. "She had a nightmare. Kept crying, but calmed down when she heard your voice." He smiled softly. "She's brave, just like her mom." Maya hesitated, then turned in his arms. "What happens if Daniel comes back again?" Adrian kissed her forehead. "Then we remind him this isn't a battlefield. It's a home, and we fight for it with love." Later that day, they visited a quiet suburb on the city's edge. Adrian had found a property. A modest but beautiful house with a garden, a swing set, and tall trees that whispered peace. Maya walked through the rooms slowly, Lily holding her hand. The place was nothing like the penthouse. It was simpler, warmer, real. "I wanted to ask you first," Adrian said quietly. "I know we've built something safe up there, but this feels more like what she needs." Maya knelt beside Lily, who was chasing butterflies in the grass. Her daughter giggled, free in a way Maya had never known as a child. "It feels like a real home," she whispered. They moved in 2 weeks later. There were bumps, boxes misplaced, forgotten screws, late pizza nights on the floor, but laughter filled every space. Lily's room was painted sunflower yellow. Maya added family pictures along the staircase. Adrian built a bookshelf with his bare hands, even though it leaned slightly to the left. At night, they lay together on the couch, exhausted but full. "Do you miss the penthouse?" Maya asked one evening. Adrian chuckled. "Not even a little. I've got everything I need right here." Maya rested her head on his chest. "I never thought I'd find this. I used to believe love was something people like me didn't deserve." Adrian gently tilted her chin up. "Then let me spend the rest of our lives proving otherwise." She smiled. "You're doing just fine." That night, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Maya tucked Lily into bed. She whispered a prayer over her daughter's heart, then stood at the door and watched her sleep peacefully. No more shelters in the rain. They had found a home. 3 months of peace. 3 months of soft mornings, garden picnics, and bedtime stories that always ended with Lily asking for just one more. Maya had started painting again, something she hadn't done since college. Adrian balanced his CEO duties with family life, managing meetings from the home office while Lily sometimes colored quietly beside him. Felt like the storm was behind them, until it wasn't. The letter came on a Tuesday afternoon. A manila envelope, hand-delivered. No return address. Maya opened it cautiously, heart tightening the moment she saw the court seal. She sank into a chair as she read. Daniel was requesting full custody. He claimed Maya had manipulated Adrian into her life for financial gain, that she was mentally unstable due to her history of abuse and unfit to provide a balanced home. Tears stung Maya's eyes. Not again. When Adrian came home and saw the envelope on the table, he didn't speak for a long time. He simply read it, jaw tightening with each line. Then he looked at her and said just 3 words. "We fight back." But this time it wasn't just about defense. Adrian wanted Daniel stopped for good. "I want a full background check. We dig into every contract, every woman he's threatened, every business partner he's screwed over. He opened this door, now we walk through it." They met with their lawyer the next morning. The legal team had already begun gathering evidence. But what they needed now was testimony, witnesses who could speak to Daniel's pattern of coercion and violence. Maya hesitated. "There's someone, Angela. She dated him before me. She disappeared after they broke up." Adrian nodded. "We find her." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She stood in Lily's room, watching her daughter breathe peacefully. How many times could a mother fight this war? Would it ever end? Adrian joined her silently, placing a hand on her back. "You're not alone." She turned, tears in her eyes. "I'm scared." "So am I," he whispered. But love isn't the absence of fear. It's standing in the middle of it and refusing to run. Angela. Took weeks to find her. She had changed her name, moved across the country, and erased every trace of Daniel from her past. But when Maya's lawyer finally reached her and explained why they needed her voice, why another woman and her child were being dragged through the same nightmare, Angela agreed to come. They met in a quiet cafe, far from the courtroom. Angela was quiet, guarded, but her eyes softened when she saw Lily holding Maya's hand. "She looks like you," Angela said. Maya nodded, her voice low. "I want her to grow up free." Angela took a deep breath. "Then let's end this." Angela's testimony changed everything. In court, she described how Daniel had isolated her, manipulated her finances, threatened her job. She had miscarried during their relationship, stress-induced, doctors had said. But Daniel had blamed her. "He's not just toxic," she said. "He's calculated, dangerous." The courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Maya watched Daniel's face lose its usual confidence. His lawyer looked shaken. It wasn't just Maya anymore, it was a pattern, a truth too big to deny. The judge requested a psychological evaluation for Daniel. 2 weeks later, the court ruled in Maya's favor. Not only did she retain full custody, Daniel's visitation rights were suspended indefinitely pending further evaluation. Outside the courtroom, Adrian hugged Maya tight. "It's over," he whispered. Maya nodded, her whole body trembling as relief washed over her. They went home, hand in hand, to where Lily waited with a babysitter and a picture she had drawn. It showed 3 stick figures under a rainbow. "Mama, Daddy, and me," she said proudly. "We beat the rain." Years passed. The house grew filled with warmth, chaos, and laughter. Lily started school, made friends, and told everyone who asked that her father was the man who found her and her mama in the rain. Adrian proposed to Maya on a quiet beach at sunset. No cameras, no press. Just a ring and a trembling voice that asked, "Will you let me love you for the rest of my life?" Maya said yes before the waves even reached their feet. They married in their garden the following spring. And every time it rained, Maya smiled, because the storm had once broken her. But now she knew even rain can become shelter.